Now, victims of the Holocaust will be honoured tomorrow on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration camp Auschwitz. Well, joining me now is the founder of Holocaust Matters, Noemielopian. Her parents survived the Holocaust. Noemi, thanks so much for joining us on what is such an incredibly important moment, as it is every year, of course. I was reading about both your parents, and if I may, I want to talk to you first about your father and his extraordinary story. He spent time in 7 concentration camps before finally being liberated by American soldiers. Tell us more about his story.
So my father was 17 at the outbreak of war in 1939, and for the first almost a year and a half to 2 years, he went into hiding. But he was an old teenager, rebellious. I say old. He was 19 on the 25th of March, 1941, when he refused to go into hiding. And that was in the middle of the night when he was woken up by the Nazis, screaming and beatings, and was beaten out of his flat. And that was the very last time he saw his mother. He was reunited in the first camp with his father in Grünheide and underwent, as you said, 6 more camps and concentration camps and 5 transit camps. And he was liberated on the 30th of April 1945 by the Americans close to Munich. And he says very poetically, we were solitary islands in a freezing, frozen, foreign world. The world didn't understand what the survivors had been through.
Yeah, extraordinary. And of course, he's documented that in his book, The Long Night. Yes, you have it there. Your mother, Renee Koenig, she had a very different experience, one of where her parents went into hiding and to save their children, sent them abroad, but she too was stopped and held for some time.
Correct. Renee, I call her Little Renee, and her sister Helen, 13, Renee was 10, her brother Joey, 9, were entrusted to French resistance workers, different ones, to take them across France from the southwest to Switzerland, across the border to safety. On the way, as you say, they were arrested by the Gestapo with machine guns and sniffer dogs. By then, Renee and her siblings were in a group of 32 children from the ages of 2 to 18. And they were then taken to prison, to Annemasse. This town exists today, which makes the border town to Geneva. There, Renee was interrogated at gunpoint by the Gestapo, asking repeatedly, are you Jewish? What's your name? What's your parents' name? What's your parents' address? The Gestapo wanted to know the parents' addresses to deport these parents to the concentration camps.
Yeah, and what is extraordinary is the fact that they made that journey in trucks and in hiding, and at such a young age.
Yes, at a young age and on their own, and not knowing the group leaders. And the parents had to make this huge, difficult choice of whether to leave the children with them and be at high risk of being picked up and sent to concentration camp or sent them away to safety. Helen was ingenious and managed to get a postcard sent out of prison, not using exact words, but explaining to her parents that they didn't make it to safety across the border, and sent it to a neighbour, and this neighbour passed the message on to their parents.
Extraordinary. And of course, you run now Holocaust Matters, quite simply, as it says what it does. It matters for us to all remember. And on the eve of the 80th commemoration, how important is it for us to continue talking about this so people understand what happened and never forget?
I think it's extremely important not to forget. Our survivors are getting older and therefore fewer. And we must tell our children and our grandchildren what man is capable of. We must remember that this was done by man to man. People of Jewish faith and culture are a people like any other. They belong to one race, that's the human race. And to just hurt somebody with words or actions simply because they don't like or hate is not a civilized person, is not a decent human being. And I want to warn people that this can happen again if we don't make good choices. when we live in a democracy, we're safe to do so, and we must watch over our democracy and cherish our democracy.
And what is the response like from young children because of the nature that tomorrow is 80 years since the liberation? For many young people, they might think this is so long ago, let's leave it behind. And yet we are all doing our best to make sure we do not forget and do not leave it to the history books.
I think exactly. I think personal stories are very important. It now carries on. I'm the second generation and third and fourth generation, but I also tell the pupils and students who I talk to, everybody's responsibility, moral obligation to remember, not to forget. And 6 million, the number of people of Jewish faith that got and culture that got murdered is too huge a number for any of us to compute this unprecedented evil and horror. But we can each relate to one story. And if we take that story on of that human being, then we can understand what happened and can relate and empathize. The children are very, very responsive and manage to connect on an empathic and intellectual levels. And that includes special needs children as well. Everybody can learn and understand, but we must continue to educate for a better world. And I so believe that we can do it.
Well, Noemielopian, thanks very much indeed for joining us tonight on Sky News to bring us your parents' story. Thanks very much.
Thank you.